Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sleep. Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. That was Psalms 127. What are you laboring for? The Bible says that you might be building God's house, but unless the Lord is in the picture, you are laboring in vain. Paul said in Galatians, I am afraid of you, lest I have bestowed upon you labor in vain. Some of you need to reevaluate what you're laboring for. What are you laboring for? A paycheck? If all you're laboring for is a buck, then friend, you're laboring for the wind. The Bible says a little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. I'll never forget watching a particular basketball player say on camera, he said, one of my goals is to actually become one of the first billionaire basketball players. And I thought, what a silly goal. If you're just chasing the almighty dollar, you're chasing the wind. You're laboring in vain. Any nominal Christian could say he's better off with the little that he has versus all the big rappers who are lost and on their way to hell with all of their riches. And that goes not only for big rappers out there who make a lot of money, but also movie stars and sports figures and anyone else out there who we admire. I'd rather live in a one-bedroom apartment with a $3,000 per month paycheck knowing I'm on my way to heaven to be with Jesus as opposed to living in a $1 million mansion and be as lost as a bat in hell. What do you labor for? You better not be laboring for nothing. I don't know one person who likes to do work without getting paid. Some places encourage people to get out there and do volunteer work. Now, I'm not against volunteer work. I know a lot of people who work for the USO as volunteers. They don't get paid a dime, but they do it because many of them are retired and don't need the money. But for most of us, we're not retired. We need to be paid for our labors. Do you get paid what you're worth? The definition of labor is the services performed by workers for wages. Look, if you don't get paid what you think you're worth, why would you continue working at that dead-end job? Jesus said the laborer is worthy of his hire. Are you worthy of your hire? What kind of job do you do? Are you lazy? Or do you earn your paycheck? Some of you are only worth minimum wage. You do the minimum amount of work and you are worth the minimum amount of pay. Some of you don't even know what you're worth. You work at a dead-end job making minimum wage when you could be working for the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar business. Do something that you know will work for you. Do something that you know will pay you. And what do you labor for? Some of you don't labor at all. You let someone else do it. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Jesus said they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. What do you labor for? Do you let someone else do the work? Do you sit around while everyone else carries the heavy burden? What do you labor for? Some of you need to get up out from behind your desks and get involved. I'll never forget back when I was stationed in Germany. I had this colonel I worked for. Before he sat down in his office to take the reins as commander, he did a couple things. The first thing he did is that he walked around the entire squadron and personally met each person in the squadron. He wrote down their names and something to remember them by. I'll never forget, he met me one time, but that was all it took. A couple weeks went by and he saw me in the hallway and he said, "Hey there, Brian, how's your daughter doing?" I was shocked. There was hundreds of people in the squadron. He not only remembered me, but he also remembered my daughter. The second thing he did was he went out and worked right beside everybody out there who did the grunt work. And you know, I had never seen a colonel get outside and push pallets before. Colonels, in my experience, only sat behind a desk. And it was amazing. He was a great example of a leader. You know, you can be the boss all you want and boss people around, but it takes real character to be a leader. What do you labor for? Some of you don't work enough. Some of you don't work at all. Did you know that work is a commandment? God commands us to labor. The Bible says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor, and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. What do you labor for? You know, some of you probably complain about only having 2 days off per week. Most people with regular jobs work during the week and have Saturday and Sunday off. That's 2 days off. You should be thankful that you get those 2 days off. God commanded that men work 6 days out of the week and get 1 day off. By the way, Saturday is the day you're supposed to rest, not Sunday. If you look at the Jewish calendar in Israel, by the way, I've been to Israel, you'll see that the Jewish people celebrate the Sabbath day on Saturday. That's the day of rest. What do you labor for? Some of you work too much. Some of you work 7 days a week when God commands you to work 6. Why do people do that? I can understand working maybe 3 days a week and having 4 days off to go have fun with the wife and the kids, maybe go play basketball or go hunting or something like that. But come on, people work 7 days a week with no days off. Give me a break. Why would you do that? What are you laboring for? Are you laboring just to labor? If you labor just to labor, then you're missing out on some very special things in life. There's more to life than just work. The Bible says that God rested from his work. And if God can rest a day from doing his work, then so can you. What do you labor for? You labor for yourself? The Bible says there is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches, neither saith he, for whom do I labor, and bereave my soul of good? This is also vanity, yea, it is a sore travail. It goes on to say, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. What do you labor for? I used to have a friend named David Reifenberg. I'll never forget him. I considered him one of my best friends, and it used to irritate me because he didn't work. He didn't have a job. He always told me as an excuse that he was doing the Lord's work. So I thought it would be a good idea to help him get a job. So I did. He got a job working at a fast food joint, and he did fairly well. But after a few months, he quit his job. And I said to him, David, why did you quit your job? He said to me, I do the Lord's work. And he was right. He did do the Lord's work. I remember one time I was in church and he came up to me and he said, Brother Brian, you won't believe what just happened. I was out on the street soul winning and this guy told me that he was going to kill himself, and God put me there just in time to stop him and lead him to Christ. He prayed and asked God to save him. Friend, there's no better work to do than the Lord's work. What do you labor for? Do you labor for souls, or do you labor for yourself? The Bible says there is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor. Some people just labor for themselves. What's in it for me? What do I get? They could care less about other people. What about you? Do you care about other people? I think often about my friend David. He didn't have a single soul to support him as he did the Lord's work. The Lord was his only supporter. I remember he told me that he sometimes would sleep in a car or sleep in the woods in a tent. Sometimes he would sleep out in the open on a bench somewhere, but he did the Lord's work. He didn't have anyone to support him, and that's a shame. The man of God ought to be supported. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You don't like to give to the church. You think you deserve your money. You think you don't have to give to anyone. It's yours. You earned it. But God said to bring all the tithes into the storehouses. Do you tithe? What do you labor for? Do you help the work of God? Do you support the man of God? Do you support your own family? I think about people out there who have all these children and they don't support them. They don't even care. They don't work at all. I think that's very sad. Some preachers go homeless because they don't have anybody to support them. God is their only supporter. What do you labor for? Do you labor for Jesus? Do you do his work? Or do you just sit at home watching TV or playing video games? What do you labor for? Some of you are laboring for the wrong thing. The Gospel of John says, Labor not for the meat which perisheth, but for that meat which endureth unto everlasting life, which the Son of Man shall give unto you, for him hath God the Father sealed. Then said they unto him, What shall we do that we might work the works of God? Jesus answered and said unto him, This is the work of God, that ye believe on him whom he hath sent. Some of you are laboring for the wrong thing. Jesus said to labor for that food that endures unto everlasting life. He was talking about faith here. He was saying that some of you need to quit working your way to heaven and just believe in Jesus. Too many people think that their good works or their labors will earn them eternal life, but that's not the case. Jesus said to believe on him whom God has sent. And they asked him, What shall we do that we might work the works of God? Jesus replied, This is the work of God, that ye believe on him whom he hath sent. And finally, some of you need to realize that your labor is not in vain. The Bible says, Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Thank you for listening to the Value of Truth Ministries. I hope this message was a blessing to you. God bless you. I'm Brian Price.